Hey guys, this is my 62 Cadillac limo. I've had a lot of questions recently regarding LS swapping these things, so I was going to make a really quick, crappy cell phone video kind of explaining what I did and try to throw some pictures in here as well that I have to show you what I did. So this is a 6-liter LQ4 and a 4L80E. I chose this motor just because it has more torque and more power than like a 5.3, although I'm sure a 5.3 would work fine, as a lot of people have used those too. I kept the truck intake because it makes more power down low. And again, this thing's just a cruiser. So I figured, well, I just want it to be, make a lot of power down low toward where I'm at. This thing is all stock except for basically this intake tube. I even used the stock cast iron manifolds on it. I bought the engine online and the transmission combined, and they went ahead and cleaned up the wiring harness. So it's actually a factory wiring harness. That brown towel right here is actually the computer. I never even mounted it. I just kind of set it there. So real quick, so I don't want this to be a really long video. There's a few big issues with mounting these in these cars. Number one is it's an X frame, at least this one is, so it gets really tight really quickly. So that was part of the reason I used the factory manifolds, just was a clearance thing, but I'm sure you could fit headers. The front cross member, which I don't know if I can show you, you can kind of see it, but right here, I know right there all the way over, I actually hacked it out. I basically put it half the height. So I think it was originally like 3.5 inches. Now it's 1.5 inches or 2. And that's like a 3/8 inch steel plate that I welded back in place. So it's ultra strong, nothing to worry about there. But I saw a picture somewhere online that guy used the truck intake and didn't modify that front cross member, and it put it maybe the crank pulley, 1/16 of an inch away, and in theory it would never hit, but I just wasn't comfortable with that and I didn't want to fight it, so I just went ahead and hacked that out, got rid of it. So I have tons of clearance now at the crank pulley. I use a Holley 302 pan, so it's a lot shorter. The sump area is a lot shorter than a truck pan or even the muscle car pan that GM sells. It's all cast, it's a quality piece, and it uses the oil filter in the factory location, which is another reason I like it. So, and I kind of run those Holley 302 pans on all my LS swaps. Motor mount wise, I had a pair of LS to small block Chevy adapter plates with small block Chevy motor mounts, and then I had a set of Chevelle frame horns laying around. So I basically cut up the frame horns and made them work in here with these LS or the small block Chevy mounts. So you can kind of see that like silver piece right there is actually the machined adapter. Right there too on the frame, you can kind of see like a dent. And that was me massaging it with a torch to make clearance for the exhaust there. So basically, notched that front cross member. I basically made my own motor mounts. I know Dirty Dingo makes some universal ones that a lot of guys like, but I don't have any experience with those. I've seen that guys use those. And then the Holley pan, to get the transmission in there, I did have to cut the transmission hump and re-weld in a new one, and the door's locked right now, so you can't really tell, but it's raised up, a couple inches in there to make clearance for it. And then the transmission cross member's the factory one, but I had to like weld on a little shelf or something for the transmission to sit on, so it was nothing crazy. I'm not really some crazy fabricator, just an average guy in his garage, and I made it work. The gas pedal, mine is still cable operated, so it has a low car cable that goes down, and you can't really see it, but there's a little bracket that kind of holds that, and then it just connects to the factory gas pedal. So I just use the factory gas pedal connected to a low car cable on up. Let me think here. Power steering, I just had some lines made from like a local hose shop, so they're not really the prettiest, but they work great. The other big thing that I had to do, which you can't see because it's dark and it's hidden, the steering column where it comes out down there. There's normally a rag joint, like a rubber rag joint in between the steering column and the steering box. And I had to get rid of that, and I used a Borgeson solid sleeve to connect those two for clearance issues. So that, rag joint's 3.5 inches in diameter, and now it's only about 1 inch. And that gave me the clearance around the exhaust that I needed, because it gets pretty tight down there too. So if there was a light, you could kind of see what I was talking about. But radiator and fan setup, I'm sure there's a million different options. I used 4th gen Camaro radiator and fans. I bought these off of Craigslist for like $100. What's nice is you can buy a new radiator for $100 from AutoZone, or a new fans for $100. So you can buy it cheap, brand new. And I figure, well, if it can cool those cars, it'll definitely cool this. I used a B&M, what do you call it, transmission cooler, just because I had it laying around. But there is ports in this transmission cooler, or a transmission cooler in the radiator for a transmission cooler. But I just already have this thing laying around, so I use that. Trying to think what else I can show you here. But that's really kind of it. And like I said, I'll try to put some pictures in here showing you as far as the fuel system. I use nothing but Earls for all my stuff. I've had extremely good luck. Knock on wood, I've never had a leak or an issue. They always work great. That's one tip I can give you, is don't mix and match your companies. Stick with one company. If you start mixing and matching, even though they should be all machined the same, they're always just a tiny bit off, and you'll have issues. So I just stick with Earls, and it's a quality, it's made in the United States, whatever. So that's what I just use. But as far as the fuel system goes, let me see if I can get back here and I'll show you. I welded a sump onto the bottom of the tank, and then ran an inline pump. It's an aeromotive pump, so it's a quality pump with a filter. And let me see if I can get down here. So you can kind of see it here. It's pretty low, but the car's aired out, kind of not aired out, but pretty low right now. It's not the cleanest setup, but it works. And the reason I did, I had a lot of this shit just laying around. So I just wanted to, this whole swap I wanted to do cheap as I could, basically. So there's the sump that I welded on, a pre-filter, and then a pump, and then there's a post filter farther up. Like I said, the car's on bags, Ride Tech bags, so it's pretty low right now. So I don't normally drive that low, so I never had an issue. The tips on there, if it's in tank, I personally think it's a better setup, because one, the pump doesn't have to suck, and 2, it's quieter, and 3, it's cooled. That fuel pump's cooled by the fuel. So that's the big tip, is if you're going to do inline, put it as absolutely close to the fuel tank as possible, and make sure it's gravity fed. Those pumps do not like to be pulling the fuel towards them. You can, but it's definitely going to shorten the lifespan of it. So basically, the fuel lines just run up here. Oops, sorry. And then they make these like AN adapters to these factory clip deals. So again, this is all AN, Earl's AN stuff to just go to the factory rails. I'm trying to think. I think that's about it, though. Like I said, I'll try to throw a few pictures in here. Keep this video kind of short, but that's really the swap is, and that's really your big issues, is that front cross member you're probably going to have to notch. You're going to have to fab up your own motor mounts and kind of get this thing fit in there. But you can do it. So mine has the big tall truck intake and all the truck accessories, and you can close the hood and it all fits perfectly. So later on down the road, if I wanted to throw a blower on there, plenty of room. If I want to add turbos, plenty of room. And yeah, it's been a great swap. I mean, I don't have any issues with it. It's just a bone stock LS or LQ4 LS engine, and with this thing, I drove it to Vegas a couple years ago and got like 17 miles to the gallon with it. And, and I mean, the thing will idle all day long, never overheats, fires up instantly every time. I did the 4L80E, so it has overdrive. So it's basically like the new version of a Turbo 400. Still has the factory shift handle. I used a low car adapter there. And then, again, I should have unlocked this thing, but Those are Dakota Digital gauges in there, so it looks like a factory gauge setup, but then I have a working tachometer and everything else. So if you have any more questions, let me know, and see ya.